be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
This sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
That was Aaron Rodgers' thing. To your quarterback in the first round.
Yeah.
It's a luxury pick. We don't have the luxury. We're trying to win right now. I'm in a window right now, and you're going to say, no, we're going to plan this for the future. With a guy who had 4 seasons ended by injury. 4. Like, Michael Penix is a walking injury. Like, what are you doing taking him in the top 10?
The Bostonian versus the Book.
And now you have to qualify in these majors. You got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness. And I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. Mm-hmm. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome in. A very happy Friday to you. It is Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri, ready for what is a absolutely loaded weekend around the sports betting landscape. The Belmont Stakes tomorrow. We've got plenty of Major League Baseball, including a couple of games in London. The puck will drop in the NHL. Game 1 of Stanley Cup Finals, Florida and Edmonton. And Game 2 in the NBA Finals will be Sunday between Boston and Dallas. We've got a ton to unpack here over the next couple of hours, but I can't think of any place better to start than with our good friend Brady Cannon on this Friday, as Brady and I, just off air, are just screaming and yelling that Scotty Scheffler is apparently not in handcuffs anymore. Instead, he's out here just embarrassing everybody again. 9 under par now for the tournament. Again, an amazing second round. Leading, it looks like, here into a weekend. And there's just no money to back him. And he just continues to be amazing here, Brady. What are we to make of him at the Memorial right now?
This is really something, Joe. I mean, all kidding aside, you and I were laughing about this, but it's just more superlatives that we have to cast on this character. And you're right. He's no longer in handcuffs. It seems the rest of the field is. You can see some of these scores that other guys are posting. This golf course is hard. I mean, this is a heck of a tune-up for a U.S. Open, because I think they're going to get this level of difficulty, if not more so, next week at Pinehurst. You look at what Scotty's doing. He's up to his usual tricks. He's number 1 in the field for strokes gained off the tee. He's number 2 for strokes gained on approach. Now he's also 17th in this field in putting. And that is a little bit out of character for Scotty. You know that. Typically the putter is not as hot for Scotty Scheffler. If he's fixed that part of his game, look out. Cross him off for the U.S. Open and the British Open. But the putter could go the other direction. It could go south here. Maybe I'm betting we'll probably see that one time out of the 4 days. That doesn't mean he's not going to still win this. He's got a 3-shot margin now. And guys, the rest of the big names like Victor Hovland and Oberg, they're 4, 5, 6 shots back. So he's out to a great lead. And if the putter goes south for even just one day, it still might not be enough.
So let's talk about some of these names. We talked to you on Wednesday here, and a lot of names that you gave us are certainly in and around the leaderboard, including the old man. Keegan Bradley is up there, Tommy Fleetwood, Colin Morikawa. You go down the list here, there's a lot of guys, Alex Noren. They haven't been playing bad, but to your point here, we've got a lot of guys where, hey, 71, 70, pretty good given these conditions. And then there's, Scheffler, 67, 60. What about these guys that are trailing him now, including Adam Hadwin, who's played very well, shot 66 yesterday, 72 today. Whole lot of guys at 6 and 5 and 4, but now they're playing catch up on move-on day. Are they not?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And this is a hard golf course to catch up on. As you can see, it's very difficult. I mean, Scotty could come back to the pack. Maybe he shoots an even par round on Saturday. But how many guys are really going to shoot like 63? I don't know if there's a 63 out there on this golf course. It's very similar to the Masters. Jack, when he designed this place, took inspiration from Augusta National. And as it turns out, it's similar that it's a hard course to play catch up on. You have to get out to a good start, as you do with the Masters. After day one of the Masters, the winner typically comes from that top 10 on the leaderboard. It was funny. I was joking. I did a podcast for the U.S. Open with a gentleman yesterday, and he had 4 different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and corresponding with the level of player. And he's like, do you like the way the pool's set up? And he goes, maybe I should just take Scotty Scheffler out. And that's what it's like here. All these other guys, Noren and Keegan Bradley, it's like, maybe we should just start having a betting market without Scotty Scheffler. They have that at some shops. And maybe that's what I need to start betting into. I like Scotty next week, but Hovland is playing very well, Joe. 5th off the tee, 3rd on approach, 25th in putting. His putting could get a little bit better, and he might make a run. Bradley worries me a little bit because he's a little shaky with the ball striking. 28th off the tee and 30th on approach, number 1 in putting. Is Keegan Bradley really going to stay hot putting, over the course of the weekend? I don't know. Rory's been kind of pedestrian, 40th off the tee, 14th on approach, and 16th with the putter. I just don't know if there's anything anybody can do to catch Scotty except for, try to enter tournaments he's not in.
No. We talked about Russell Henley too as a big number guy that is quietly been putting together one hell of a I mean, all his data tells us he's right there in every tournament. He's just racking up these numbers. Hasn't really got the flat stick working, usually something that works in his favor. But again, he's even par. If you take Scheffler out of the tournament, he's 3-4 strokes away from being right in it here. And I think that's the problem. When we do this on Friday, we say, okay, what's the number here? What's the cutoff of, sorry, not this tournament. You're not coming back. Is it even par? Is it 3 under? What is it?
Yeah, good question. Obviously Scotty's at 9. Next closest is at 6.
6.
I think that's probably your first goal, is to get to 6. If you can shoot 68 over the weekend, that's 8 under par right there. That's probably a good start. I think you're going to have to shoot 68 over the weekend, get to 8, and then whatever you've got already. If you're at even par right now, 8 is probably not going to get it done. We talked about it on Wednesday, Joe. The pre-tournament over-under score here was 275.5, which means 12.5 under par. So is Scotty likely to get to 12.5? I'd say probably so. Even if he has one day where he shoots even par, that means he shoots 3 under or 4 under another day, which is very possible. So, that 12 could really be the number. These guys are at 5 or 6. If they can shoot 8 under over the weekend, they've got a real shot. So I would say 4 under is probably absolutely as deep as you can go right now.
So let me ask you, it's not obviously Memorial next week is the U.S. Open, and we take a look at the Live Tour. I believe it's back in Houston now, teeing off tomorrow, because don't forget, we're going to see a whole lot of those guys next week too here. And anybody in particular you're leaning towards in Houston here with this weekend's Live Tournament?
Well, the best guy I have going right now is Carlos Ortiz. I played Taylor Gooch and Brendan Steele, and Gooch, kind of odd. You talk about the numbers for Russell Henley. Taylor Gooch has really good numbers on the Live circuit this year, and last time I looked, he was +2 over par for the day. Ortiz got off to a good start. This course used to be a regular on the PGA Tour when they played the Houston Open. And in 2021, Carlos Ortiz finished 4th here at this same track. So he's off to a good start. Our boy Cam Stewart is on Thomas Pieters, and Pieters was 1 shot out of the lead last time I looked at 5 under par. So, just a couple days left on the Live circuit. I have not played any Live players for a U.S. Open, and we're not really sure, but there was 1 shot we saw on social media today where it looked like John Rahm could possibly have injured himself. It doesn't look serious, but that's something to investigate for sure. I don't want to speculate. It didn't look awful, but it's something to check on.
Yep. Well, listen, he's hurt. He'll still finish in the top 10. Brady Cannon, enjoy the weekend, my man. Game Time Decisions returns after this.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Going to be a heck of a weekend across the sports betting landscape, really. We got plenty of games here tonight in Major League Baseball. We got the NHL Stanley Cup Game 1 tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of eyes on that. The Belmont Stakes will be running at Saratoga. It's a long story. Don't ask. We'll go over it. Yes, it's the Belmont, but it's not at Belmont. So we'll go over that a little bit later. But Celtic fans around the world, no doubt, celebrating here today, getting their sweep tickets all prepared because it was a beatdown of epic proportions. And nobody knows that better than Adam Kaufman stepping in here. And Adam, we had you on In-Game Live primetime last night. Dave and I, at the break, as we were watching that, we did think Dallas would make a little bit of a run there in the second half, and they certainly did. But if we're being honest, that game was over in the first quarter. And then everything that really came after that, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time and put a whole lot of eggs in that basket because the entire complexion of the game changed after that first quarter. The question is that repeatable for the Boston Celtics moving forward?
Well, like you said, up 17 points after the first quarter. I think that was the largest finals lead at the first quarter break in history, yep. Right? I mean, so Boston was, well in control, and Kristaps Porzingis after that 4 or 5 week layoff was absolutely incredible. A little more measured in the second half. Didn't play very much in the second half either. His dominance was mostly early when he checked in, but he just gives the Celtics offensively so many options. What was really fun, like you said, I came on with you at halftime, and you guys had kind of asked, how's the rest of this game going to go? And isn't it just nice? Isn't it fun to be right? Because what we said was Mavericks are going to make a run. 20-plus point leads aren't what they used to be. Wouldn't be surprised if they even just barely got within 10, and then Boston basically gets the kick in the pants, wakes up again, and wins. And sure enough, that's what happened. Dallas took a 29-point deficit all the way down to 8, and then out of a timeout by Joe Mazzulla, a well-timed timeout, and I feel like I need to point that out because it's been a constant criticism of him during his time in Boston that, Celtics responded at that point. And I know that, you could look at it and say this was a really balanced offensive game for the Celtics, 6 players in double figures. Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis were your leading scorers, not Jason Tatum, who, of course, is the top 5 guy, the all-NBA guy. There's been a lot of discussion, annoying social media discussion about whether or not he was good, bad, or somewhere in between because people see the 6 turnovers and just, read the box scores and form all of their opinions based on that and discount all the things he did to lead to easy baskets and easy shots, especially outside the arc there for Boston. So to your question, as far as is it repeatable, the answer is a resounding yes. I mean, of course it's repeatable. I don't know that the Celtics are going to repeat it on Sunday in game 2, but is it repeatable? Absolutely, because keep playing that level of defense. I mean, you play that level of defense, allowing the Mavericks below 90 points, you're going to sweep them. But you keep with that level of defense, and in particular, really restrict Luka Doncic, make him work. I told you the game plan for Luka going into this series, in my eyes, and it certainly played out in game 1, is Luka's going to be Luka, sort of let him get his to a certain degree. He's going to score his 30-plus points, but don't let him do it on 15 shots. Make him take close to 30 shots and limit his ability to create for others. He had 1 assist, Joe, in that game, a playoff career low for him, but the more telling stat than that is he only had 6 potential assists. So it's not like, guy could have had 15 assists if guys around him were just converting. No, he wasn't even setting guys up. So Boston, the way it collapsed and stifled these bigs, and Porzingis on the interior in preventing lobs was a gigantic part of it, and preventing the corner 3, which the Mavericks, lived by in the regular season. They only allowed 3 of them the entire night. Celtics just had an excellent game plan, and I think they're fully capable of doing it again.
So, and we're at the moment in the movie, folks, where this is where Boston gets real fat and sassy, and they get real comfortable in a game 2 after a blowout, 11-19 against the number in the playoffs since 2020, coming out of a game in which they blew out their opponent. Dallas also been very good. They don't win game 1s of series, if you haven't figured that one out yet, but they have been very good on the road and bouncing back in game 2. So, here we go again. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Boston wins both games and then, the Mavericks take game 3 at home. It feels like that's their best chance, is they got to make a couple of adjustments, see where that goes, and then back against the wall, Luka is always dangerous in game 3. But right now, the market Still looks like they're back in Dallas. This opened up 7.5. It was bet down to 7 quickly last night. Now I'm seeing 6.5. So here we go again. The spot screams Dallas, but are you buying it?
So I think it plays out exactly the way that you just laid it out. I think the Celtics take game 2. I already bet Boston to cover 7 earlier before it moved to 7.5. And like you said, it moved back down the other way with people supporting the Mavericks. And maybe looking at track record and seeing the Celtics, really laid an egg and looked just sort of listless in round 1 against Miami, game 2, round 2 against Cleveland, game 2, same deal. Pacers, they were able to actually have a pretty solid game 2 performance. And as we know, they swept in that series. But I think that's how it happens. I think Boston takes the first 2 at home. I think Dallas wins game 3. And at that point in time, you see, obviously we get a series at that point. If Boston should happen to win the first 3, it's over. I mean, we know that. No team in NBA history has ever come back from down 0-3. Even if Dallas is at home for game 4, forget it. They're not going to reel off 4 straight. This Celtics team hasn't lost 3 games in a row the entire year, regular season, postseason, whatever. And as we know, 13-2 here in the playoffs. So I think the way you said it is how it goes. But you can't at the same time, and I say this hopefully on behalf of everyone in that Celtics locker room, you can't take the Mavericks led by Luka and Kyrie Irving in particular for granted. Kyrie had a bad night. He had a bad night. Maybe let the crowd get into his head a little bit. He is going to be better in game 2. I don't think he'll be great, but he's certainly going to be better than he was.
Yeah, and don't forget, I mean, the game 2 against Indiana, they should have lost that game in overtime and then bounced back. So we're back to blowouts with Boston. We'll talk more about it as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in game live, and we are primetime here. Game Time Decisions with In-Game Live coming up here after us here today, as they're going to be getting ready for a huge slate of Major League Baseball games here tonight, with the main attraction going to be, well, something we don't see very often here, but how about it? The New York Yankees at home getting ready to take on The Los Angeles Dodgers, kind of must-watch television here. You want to talk about history here, Adam. It doesn't get any more historic than Yankees-Dodgers, Yankee Stadium. I mean, this is fantastic, except, wait a minute, the Yankees, I thought they were the best team. Oh, no, they're a dog here. 8.5 is what we're seeing for a total. And by the way, I mean, the Dodgers have been fantastic at not living up to expectations or talents. Does any of that change here tonight, in your opinion?
So I bet the Dodgers, and I realized there's juice there. And I did that, obviously being a Boston area guy, I am no Yankees fan, but I've been riding the Yankees, and I've been riding the Yankees on the run line of late because they have been making me money, and they have felt like a pretty safe play with the way that offense is going. And as we know, Soto's banged up. He's not in the lineup. That being said, I went with the Dodgers. I think anytime you're seeing a guy like Yamamoto for the first time, it's, advantage pitcher over the hitter. And so I think this is a good spot for LA. I mean, I don't know. Do we have this Yankees-Dodgers rivalry? Is this a real thing? Does this go back to the Brooklyn days and we just need to respect it? I'm not sure. But yeah. I mean, I just think that the Dodgers are, while the record isn't quite what the Yankees record is, I just think they're the better team, the more star-studded team. The Yankees have, it's been sort of an advantageous spot at certain points. They've played some bad teams and no fault, obviously they win the games that are on your schedule. That's what you need to do. But in a matchup like this, I would tend to go with the favorite.
It is. It's going to be interesting. Soto, they're saying day to day. They pulled him into the game. I think their number one prospect, Dominguez, will be in the stadium here tonight. I can't imagine how much those tickets are here tonight, Adam. What do you think a ticket to a Dodgers, Yankees, Ohtani? What do you think that ticket's running here tonight? My goodness.
Not as much as they are to get into the NBA Finals, which that's like a balcony 300 level. That's $1,000 minimum get-in price. So it's nothing like that. But yeah, it's who wouldn't want to go to the stadium and see a matchup like this? And anytime a guy like Ohtani comes to town, and I know it's not frequent here on the East Coast, you want to obviously be in the building and get a look at history potentially. And so he's just incredible. The modern day Babe Ruth going against Babe Ruth's old team, right?
It's tremendous here. And also, I can't believe, did I see this correct? Are your Red Sox underdogs against the minor league White Sox? No, they're not. Are they? Oh, come on.
Last I mean, just barely. I mean, you're looking at it right there. I mean, that, I guess, is showing a split. I've seen some books, Chicago minus 105, Boston minus 115. So, I guess the Red Sox marginal favorites in some places, even elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, that's on account of obviously Criswell being on the mound, the rookie who has a sub-4 ERA, and it's the respect for Crochet. I mean, there's only one pitcher for the White Sox who's any good, and that is Crochet. And obviously his record is not good, but he's the guy that you hope to get anything from to even attempt to salvage a series. And so that's who they'll be leaning on. But yeah, I would be tempted to go with the Red Sox. But honestly, the only bet that I have in this one, other than the Nerfy, because I played the Nerfy like crazy, is I bet the under. That being said, with the runs that we have seen put up recently, I would be a little weary. Feel free to fade me on that. But I did take the under in this game.
So you know what's happening here. We're at this point in the season here, Adam, where Pirate fans like Dave Sharapan. Did I say that out loud? I did. Like Dave Sharapan. Apparently the Pirates are going to the playoffs now. They got a good shot at taking them down. Kudos to the Pirates. Why don't we see if they can beat Joe Ryan in Minnesota tonight? Did they do that?
Right. I don't think so. I mean, I bet Joe Ryan's over for K's, by the way, and I even laddered it up a little bit. I think that's what people need to consider. I think Joe Ryan is in for a really solid night. But, I mean, look, Keller's on the other side. Keller's been a good pitcher this year. Pittsburgh is not a bad team. Like, I can't sit here and brag about the Red Sox and say that Pittsburgh is a bad team. They're essentially the same. Red Sox are a couple of games better. They're both mediocre is the bottom line. They're not good. They're not bad. They're right there in the middle of the pack, sitting right around 500. And so, could we see a plus money upset? I think it's possible. I would still be inclined to go with the Twins.
No. Less Pirates wins is what we need. Adam Coffin, we appreciate it. Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by. As it'll be one heck of a weekend in Major League Baseball. Don't forget, we're just a couple of weeks away from what they call the dog days of summer, which means a whole lot of Major League Baseball. The calm before the storm, which of course will be August when training camps open up for the NFL, college football. But there is no better way to kick it off than with one of the greatest all-time rivalries, with the Yankees taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. And nobody knows this better than George Kurtz, who I am sure has some sort of Tommy Lasorda bobblehead oh, there he is. Hey, George. I'm just wondering, I believe I saw on eBay you're selling your Islander bobbleheads. Are you bringing out the Yankee bobbleheads now? Maybe in a couple of classic Dodger bobbleheads here. What do you think of this matchup here for this weekend?
Yeah, I guess first off, I should apologize to my neighbors for the crisis negotiating team that was been at my house all day. Juan Soto is going to be okay. I didn't jump off the roof. I'm all right. All right, so it's okay. It's all right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, a couple of days off. I can live with that. I can live with an IL stint. Just please not the torn UCL. All right, that would have been devastating here. Yankees, Dodgers. Yeah, there's a lot of nostalgia here. You joke about Tommy Lasorda. Yes, I was around for those World Series in 77 and 78.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the first baseball games I can remember watching with my father. When the Yankees won the 77-78. Yeah, I saw Reggie Jackson hit those 3 home runs in Game 6. I saw Greg Nettles turn into the human vacuum at third base for Ron Guidry during that series as well here. I tell the story, Joe, I used to be a big baseball card collector, right? When the Yankees lost the 81 World Series to the Dodgers, I threw them all out. All right. One of the stupidest things I've ever done in my life, but yeah, I was a little 12-year-old impulsive kid there, so I threw them all out when they lost 81. So sure, looking forward to it. It's been a while since the Dodgers have played at Yankee Stadium. Yankees played at Dodger Stadium last year, and if you want some more bad news, that was where Aaron Judge did the toe injury that really
Yes.
just set the Yankees season spiraling down.
Yes. Well, the good news is, again, day to day, not shelved. But the thing that bothered me the most about it is we learned that he's been playing with this injury for over a week now. So this wasn't just something that happened last night. Apparently, it's been something that's kind of been nagging him for a little while. So the MRI comes back negative, couple of days off. I was really hoping we get to see the kid Dominguez come up, George. They pulled him out of the Scranton game last night in the middle of it, and I thought for sure he was getting a bus ticket right to the Bronx. But I guess we still have to wait for Grisham to hit less than 100 like he's doing now before we see that happen here. What do you think of the game tonight here? Pitching advantage, hitting advantage, bullpen advantage? How are you approaching it?
Yeah. As far as Dominguez is concerned, his situation has nothing to do with Grisham. The Yankees could send Grisham to the moon. It wouldn't matter. What's Dominguez going to do? Sit on the bench? Grisham plays once a week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for Dominguez to get called up to the Yankees, it probably, you'll need an injury, which I didn't want the Soto injury to happen there, but you're probably looking at a Verdugo trade. I think that's what's likely to happen. Stanton's not going anywhere. They can't trade him. All right, Judge isn't going anywhere. Soto's not going anywhere. So it's really a Verdugo trade who is in the last year of his contract. It would make some sense here. You trade Verdugo maybe to get that first baseman or third baseman that you so desperately need. All right, and then Dominguez plays center field to get Judge out of center field, which we know is really not where he should be playing game in, game out here. So that's likely what you need here. I'll tell you one thing, though. It would have been interesting if it would have come back that Soto could hit but couldn't play the field for the rest of the year, like Bryce Harper last year. Boy, that puts Soto at DH. You can't put Stanton in the outfield. So you're probably still calling up Dominguez, and now Stanton's just a bench warmer here. But that doesn't look like that's going to happen here. As far as tonight's game, now, Joe, before last night's game ended here, I'd already put money on the Dodgers tonight because I knew when Soto got hurt that number was going to jump. I got it at minus 118. Yamamoto against Little Bo Peep here. Cody Poteet goes for the Yankees. He's their seventh starter. I mean, this has to be an advantage for the Dodgers. You're going to give me at minus 118 for the Dodgers against Poteet versus Yamamoto? And I was pretty sure at that point that Soto wouldn't play. Last I checked, it was minus 142, so it's gone up a quarter here, and that was a couple of hours ago here. So, yes, I'm all over the Dodgers tonight. I think they'll take – if the Dodgers can't beat the Yankees, Yamamoto versus Poteet, when can you?
Oh, Yamamoto, boy, because he can give up some hard-hit shots here. Probably not the best lineup to do that with here tonight. But you're trusting Atlanta's offense enough to lay a run and a half? Is that what I saw there, George?
Trust Atlanta offense. I'm going to more trust that Chris Sale has a bounce back here. All right, he got shelled last time out, pitched lousy. So I'm going to assume that Chris Sale can, one run, two runs. And I'm not asking much for Atlanta. I can score 4 runs, 5 runs, you win the game here. I can't, it was minus 200. I'm not laying 2-1 on the Braves. It wouldn't shock me if the Nationals win the game here. So I just like the run line. Yeah. Chris Sale, a little bounce back here in Nationals. Maybe they'll start playing like the Nationals. So give me that out the Braves tonight. But trust? No, I don't trust them.
Yeah, no, it's very hard to trust them here. Also hard to trust. Hopefully they get that Mariners-Royals game in. I guess there's been some weather concerns out in that neck of the country here. But just when we thought Kansas City might have figured some things out, kind of up and down, back and forth here. As a home dog here tonight, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go with the under. All right, Seattle's almost always an underplay anyway. It was 9. Right, and Miller's pitching. Miller's pretty good here. And, if it would have been reversed, by the way, if Kansas City would have had the better starting pitcher, I might feel a little different about this because I think Kansas City can hit. But the Mariners, for the most part, can't. Right? They can't hit. So they're almost an under every night. You're going to give me 9. I don't think Miller's going to get shellacked by the Kansas City Royals. So I liked it better before the weather problems because I am worried now if they start the game, it goes 3 innings, Miller's gone, now we get a bullpen game, and now they do hit each other. So there is more concern about that now, but I put this in much earlier today before I was worried about the number going down. I was worried about the over-under going down to 8.5 or something like that. So I put it in early here. But, yeah, weather concerns me a little bit. If I had to do it all over again, I would probably still make the bet, maybe not for as much as I put on it, though.
So what do you I'm kind of shocked on how the pricing of this Baltimore-Tampa Bay game, which is getting ready to come in about first pitch in about 10 minutes here. Savali against Irving. I got a Baltimore team, one of the best on the road. I've got a Tampa team who can't score and stinks at home. What am I missing here with this, Carts?
Not to mention a Baltimore team that generally does damage against the American League East, right? They're 12-6 so far this year. So everything points to that except for Irvin, right? It's not that Savali's great. He's not. I think Baltimore's going to score some runs here. But I guess Tampa's got to shut the score against Irvin as well here. I think Irvin's giving everybody some pause. That being said, it wasn't one of my best bets, which is why you didn't see it on the board here. But you're going to give me, I know they're minus 106, so I guess they're still an underdog here because Tampa's minus 110, but it's pretty much a 50-50. Give me the Baltimore Orioles. Are they going to lose 3 straight? They beat Toronto 2, then lost the last 2. Now you're telling me they're going to lose again tonight here? So I'm going to go with the Baltimore Orioles here, but I'll tell you this. Baltimore needs to figure out that starting pitching. Right? You got the injuries here. You lost 2 to Toronto. Yankees keep winning here. You keep waiting until the deadline to fix this. If you're going to wait that long, you may be too far behind the Yankees to worry about the American League, where you're going to be playing little wild card baseball in October. It won't affect their playoff possibilities. They're making the playoffs here. But the Orioles can't wait forever to fix their starting rotation. It was a weakness anyway. But after Burns, after Rodriguez, boy, there are a lot of question marks here.
Yeah, a ton of question marks here. Getting ready for the Stanley Cup Finals game 1 tomorrow, Kurtz, in my neck of the woods. We'll talk more about that coming up. Joe Ryan strikeout prop tonight against Pittsburgh, up and over?
Yeah, I wanted as well. Minnesota just needs to get the hell out of the Bronx, right? I mean, that was 0-6. That's the Washington Generals to the Harlem Globetrotters there, Yankees and Twins. So Twins got to be thrilled to get out of the Bronx to go play Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's not as bad as we think they are. I think this is a lower scoring game as well between Ryan and Keller here. I didn't play a team. I'm not taking a side here, but I am going to take the under in this contest as well as Ryan's strikeout.
All right, we got more MLB and some Stanley Cup. We'll talk about it next here. Game Time Decisions.
Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back the player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Off and running on a loaded Major League Baseball slate here tonight. Brewers, Tigers, Twins, and Pirates off and running, awaiting the Braves, Nats, and Orioles and Rays. You a big fan, George? I forgot to ask you. You a big fan of baseball and soccer stadiums in London? Looking forward to that weekend there with the Phillies and Mets here, or no?
No, I don't like it in the NFL.
No.
And the NFL I think is really stupid. I'll give them this, Joe. Compared to when the Yankees did it in 2019, where they scored 12 runs in the first inning between the Yankees and Red Sox, they have made the stadium more baseball MLB-like, where the dimensions are pretty close to what Citi Field would be, with the exception of center field. I think center field is 392 in London. It's 408 at Citi Field, but they did make the wall a little higher, I guess, to even things out here. But to answer your question, no, I don't like it when they play in Japan or Korea or whatever. I mean, come on. No, I don't care. But fine, in baseball, I can get it. It's 2 games of 162. In football, it drives me insane. That's one of your 9 home games. That's just too valuable.
I'll be fading both those teams as soon as they get back from over the pond there. Speaking of pond, we got a Stanley Cup Finals getting ready to kick off. Puck dropping tomorrow night in Florida. We've got Edmonton, the great last hope for Canadians here in a Stanley Cup championship here, George. What do you think? Game 1 here. You worried about the time off for the Panthers, or is it just same old here?
Did you know no Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup since 1993?
No,
heard that stat?
No.
That's shocking, I know. Thank God I want to hear that again, hopefully after tomorrow. Am I worried about the layoff? Well, can't we say that for both teams? I mean, one team has 6 days, one team has 7 days. So am I worried? Yeah, but I don't know who I'm worried more for. Do I think it could be a sluggish first period? I do. Maybe we should take the under 1.5 goals first period. Could be the opposite. Maybe the defense is sluggish and their goals going in here. I'll be honest, I do not have a great feel for this series. I don't. I think Florida's the better team, 1-20. I think they have they're deeper. I think they play the game in an older style, like an 80s, 90s style team where they want to bang, bang, bang. So you could make an argument that the layoff is better for them because once again, as much as they like to lay those hits out and they hurt, well, they hurt themselves too, right? So I guess those bumps and bruises could have gone away in a week here. I do wonder if the Oilers are going to keep playing that defensive system, which has been so successful for them. Never seen a team, Joe, do a 180. The way they play, right? They're an offensive team during the regular season and turned it around completely during the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't think I've ever seen that. But kudos to them for doing it. But did they fall into bad habits? But with the layoff here, what about Skinner? Lights out in Game 6, right? He stole Game 6. He won Game 6 for the Edmonton Oilers. Now it's 5-6 days off. You have to see, is he that same guy anymore? Has he lost his mojo? All this points me to go Florida Panthers. I'm going to take them in Game 7. I'm going to take them in Game 1 as well. You're going to give me 5.5. I got to go over, at least until I see how the series plays out here. But like I said, I don't have massive plays on any of this. But give me the Panthers in 7. I'll take the Panthers in Game 1 and give me the over 5.5.
Yeah, it's very much similar to what we just witnessed with the Celtics. This is a different Celtics team that failed over the last 3 to 4 years in the finals, right? Didn't get there last year, choked it away. Had opportunities, have been the better team. Their body language and everything the Celtics showed us last night, they are a team on a mission here. They are not losing this championship. Did you notice the celebration with the Panthers winning the Eastern Conference? Did you notice the celebration with Edmonton when they won the Western Conference? This is a team, George, that has been on a mission since they lost to Vegas last year, and they've carried themselves at such. And the great part about this, everyone appears to be healthy, right? There's no injuries on either side. So this is the best of the West versus the best of the East. But it's very hard not to think that experience won't play a factor in this game and this series coming up, no?
I agree. It generally does here. I believe it's the last four or six teams that lost the Stanley Cup the year before and made it again the next year. They've won. They've won the second time here. So we'll see if that plays into it here. I think it's going to be a good series. I don't think either team's going to wipe the other one out. So I don't think we're going to have a 4 or 5 game series. So one way you could play it, by the way, whichever team you believe is going to win, maybe you take them plus 1.5 games. All right, that gives you at least game 6. I think we're going to get at least 6 games here. So as long as you get the team right, you're golden there. So I kind of like that as well here. Could McDavid take it over and go completely bananas? Yeah, of course he could. Of course he can. He is that kind of player here. But Florida knows that. They have a good defense here. I think the Oilers are going to need to make sure that they got somebody other than McDavid, other than Draisaitl, who's putting goals home. I also wonder this, and we don't know this either. How are the refs going to call the game? Are we calling it close?
Yeah.
We're going to put the Oilers on the power play? Or are we going to let them play? Generally as the playoffs move along, they let them play. Right? They don't want to decide it. Yep. That being said, if you're a conspiracy theory, I can see, let's put McDavid on the power play a couple more times. It's good for TV. That sort of thing. Maybe something towards that as well here. But I think for the most part, they're going to let them play, and I think that plays into Florida's hands as well.
I'm having a hard time. I mean, listen, we all know if the Oilers win, I don't even care if he doesn't score. They're giving it to Draisaitl, the consummate. I'm having a hard time figuring out and trying to play it in my head. The Panthers win this series. As much as we laugh at Bobrovsky, if he continues the kind of play that he has, 2 or less goals a game, he's your winner here. No, because I can't figure it out beyond that, Kurtz. Who else? I can make a case for everybody there.
Yeah, you just said the problem here. I think McDavid, by the way, over Draisaitl if the Oilers win, even though I think Bouchard actually probably deserves it. But you said the problem here. Who's your standout for Florida? I mean, once again, I guess Barkov could score 7 goals in 4 games. Okay, fine. Right. But someone would have to do that. We know if the Panthers win, Bobrovsky got 4 more wins. And unless there's 6-4 wins, where he didn't play very well, but the offense outscored him, we know he probably played well. So yes, and listen, it's a goalie award anyway for the most part. It just is. I think McDavid would get it because it's Connor McDavid. You can make an argument once again that Skinner, if the Oilers were to win, also Skinner played very well. Maybe he should get it. But I think it would be McDavid and Bobrovsky. Those would be my favorites here. I think the only other Panther who could possibly get it would be your pick to score 6-7 goals this year.
Good point. George Kurtz, enjoy. Game Time Decisions returns after this.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Friday. We've got much going on around the sports betting landscape, but we're also a week away from the U.S. Open, not to mention the Memorial underway there at Jack's Place. And somebody who knows something about golf, a little bit about golf, is our very own Smiley Kaufman stepping in here on Game Time Decisions. You can check out his show here on the Grid. All right, the big question on the board for me, Smiley, is do you have any way of getting Scotty Scheffler arrested between now and Sunday? Because the man don't want, like, what are we witnessing right here with this guy?
Yeah, I think that may have been just a little one-timer there, Joe, but I had the privilege to watch every single shot that Scotty Scheffler hit today. I was calling the Golf Channel, and it was surgical. He did not miss one single shot on what I would call a major championship of golf course. Had a mix of U.S. Open, a mix of the Open Championship with how windy it was today. And Scotty was mistake-free on the front and battled the backside was a little kind of all over the place, but he made an eagle on 16 and birdied 18. And next thing you know, he's got a 3-shot. It's unbelievable. Every single day I watch this guy play golf, I walk away thinking, man, I obviously didn't grow up watching Tiger Woods on the grounds like I do now and watch these players. But man, oh man, Scotty is doing something special right now.
It's absolutely crazy, and he's 27 years old here. It's nuts. Usually, Smiley, we don't like to look at guys going back to back and then have to go into a major, right? Sometimes the guys who win the tournament before a major, it's not great. I don't think those rules apply to him here. I had hoped Victor Hovland wouldn't win because I like him next week in the Open, but is he even going to have a chance here on the Sunday?
Well, that's a great question. And I would say for this golf tournament, if you're looking at the board, you see Scotty Scheffler with 3 shots ahead. This is not a golf course in which I think you see a guy at even par have a chance. I just feel like you look at who's at the top, there's really quality players there. And I think the golf course just does not lend itself to somebody that's chasing birdies. It definitely lends itself to somebody who can work their way around the golf course and not have to try to overpower it and force the issue. And that's what you love to see from a golf course, that it continues to test every aspect of your game. But if you're somebody that's a little bit down the board right now, close to even par, even 1, 2, 3 under, you work to do. I mean, it's going to be difficult over the weekend. It's windy. It's dry. It's a 67 goes a long way. I just don't see very many 64s by any means.
No, you can't. I mean, now looking ahead here, Xander, Scotty. I mean, I love the way Hovland's playing. I'm also really excited that Willie Z had the kind of round he had today here. I'm rooting for him. I hope he gets everything back on track. But is there a handful of guys you're looking to see how they finish leading into next week that have a chance?
Yeah, I really think let's start with Xander Schauffele. He's a player that won the PGA Championship on the easiest 2-score relative to par of all time. So he won on a really easy golf course, and he's shown up this week. Although his score, he's in position to have a chance on the weekend. It's not been pretty off from the ball striking standpoint. So I'd like to see a little bit improvement from him over the next 2 days. Colin Morikawa is a guy that kind of has flown a little bit under the radar this year, but he just keeps putting himself in contention. Tony Finau's a kind of a flyer type of player that is kind of finding his putting a little bit. He's an elite ball striker. I wouldn't say I'm just in love with Tony, but his ball striking and play is what I believe next week is so important, to be able to hit it pin high. And nobody does it better than Scotty Scheffler. So you got to start with Scotty, and then you just try to find other guys that are going to potentially challenge him, because I just don't see any way that Scotty's doesn't have a chance on the back nine on Sunday.
Yeah, it's crazy. 3-shot lead heading in to Saturday here at the Memorial. You don't want to say never say never, but my goodness, Good luck, guys. Good luck trying to catch him here at this point. Smiley Cobb, we appreciate the time, man. Love the show here on the Grid. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and the golf. And, of course, we'll be hearing a lot more from you as the U.S. Open is just around the corner. Appreciate it, Smiley. Game Time Decisions. We'll be back after this. Another hour straight ahead.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Friday now, June the 7th, as what a weekend. I'm so looking forward to this, and it's going to be a great weekend next weekend as we talk to Smiley Kaufman here about the U.S. Open just around the corner. Memorial is still got to be finished, although I think we're all rooting for Scotty Scheffler here, or no. He is somebody that in all likelihood has a pretty good chance of winning yet another tournament. Mix in the Belmont Stakes, the NHL Stanley Cup, the NBA Finals, and oh yeah, Yankees Dodgers. Mark Zinno knows all about that, dropping in here for us. Mark, I love this slate of games this weekend. And then I think something's happening in London, but nobody really cares because the Mets are involved. But let's talk about some of these games here tonight. Your thoughts, though, with this Yankees and Soto news and the Dodgers and the Bronx, a lot of history there. Is it going to be a good series, you think?
I'd like to think so. I mean, listen, the sort of pessimist, a.k.a. guarded optimist in me, who has been a little bit skeptical on the Yankees' performance with the Soto news. I mean, it looks like it's good, but this feels like the first step of, if he's out for any significant period of time, guess what? This entire lineup changes. This entire team changes. I mean, he really has been such a catalyst for them offensively. And you had to begin to wonder, with Stanton staying healthy and Judge staying healthy and Soto staying healthy, yes, they're extremely potent. But without Soto, it's very tough for me to envision the Yankees continually being as productive as they are at this pace. But, you try to hold out hope that it's not going to happen. It feels like one of those things where he takes a couple of days off, comes back, and then whoops, one game in, you have that thing where it just hits him again. Oh, now here we go. So, again, I don't want to be too negative about it, but I certainly am very worried, to say the least.
We got a couple games getting ready here. First pitch about to happen in Cincinnati, Great American Ballpark. Cubs and Reds, Steele versus Lodolo. Just when I'm thinking the Reds might have turned a corner because who is absolutely killing the ball here finally for the Reds. But the Cubs on the road, I still don't trust the offense. So what are we doing here with them?
I mean, I'm backing the Reds tonight, mostly because I think this number is short for two reasons. As far as the money line price here, I got it at Reds minus 109 this morning. But, Justin Steele's a certain cachet after what he did last year. But the Cubs are just 1-6 in his 7 starts this year. Conversely, for Nick Lodolo of the Cincinnati Reds, been great in his 8 starts. They're 6-2. So he's been getting a ton of run support, almost 5 runs a game. And I just at home, I'm willing to back them right now. And it looks like the Reds offense is starting to turn the corner here. So I will back them in this spot here and hope that they can take the second game of this 4-game series and put a little pressure on the Cubs because, and I try to get one game ahead here. If the Reds do what I think they can do tonight, and the Cubs aren't a great road team, it's just 13-19 on the road this year. But if the Reds win the first 2, you might get a spot tomorrow where you want to play on the Cubs to make sure that they're not facing a 4-game sweep on Sunday.
Yeah, it's some interesting lines here tonight with some road teams, which we don't often like to run to the window and back as small favorites here, especially in an opening game of a series. But the Guardians taking on the Marlins as a slight favorite. The Giants taking on the Rangers with Webb. What are we thinking here with these?
Well, Webb is not the same pitcher on the road that he's been at home this year. And that it's a pretty dynamic split. His ERA is almost 3 full runs higher on the road this year than it is at home. In his 7 road starts, he's just 1-3. But this is a guy that's just been a dynamically different pitcher on the road than he has at home. And so I know the Rangers offense, and this is the problem. The Rangers at home are only giving up 3.5 runs a game. And go look at their home record. It's not good because they're not scoring. They're just not the offense that they were last year. So this is a Rangers team that's just 15-15 at home this year. And I'm banking on Lorenzen, who's been really good this year. He wasn't all that great last year, but the 2.96 ERA and the 1.17 WHIP are things to get excited about. He's not a great, strikeout pitcher, and he walks a lot of guys, which is a little bit disconcerting. So it puts guys on base, especially for a bad lineup like San Fran that doesn't really score a ton of runs. You're giving away free passes, it could be a problem. But I'm hoping the Rangers get out to an early lead here against Logan Webb and have to turn it over to that bullpen.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then you've got, and I'm trying to figure this one out, right? Because you got Miami's lost 4 straight games. They've scored a total of 8 runs in those games, and you're taking on one of the best hitting teams in the American League, and the Guardians. I don't care to throw Logan Allen out there. What am I missing at this price here with the Guardians?
I mean, again, and is Miami a favorite in certain spots in this game here? I'm seeing some out there that say it's a very fishy line, no pun intended, when it comes to Miami. But it's a very weird line to me. It's a stay away game. I wasn't going to get involved. Again, I'm seeing spots right now where Miami is actually, even money.
A small favorite.
A small favorite. So Ryan Weathers, I guess, is what we're banking on here. And again, Logan Allen has been the beneficiary of a ton of run support this year. The guy's got a 5.83 ERA, and that's the problem. He's getting nearly 6.5 runs of support per start. But yeah, when I saw that line, I said something's weird. That seems too easy for the Guardians. But they've been mashing the heck out of the baseball, so it's tough to step in front of them.
Yeah, I don't. Miami's 11-23 at home, and what? They're laying money? Absolutely not. Not buying it here. Are you buying the Astros here tonight? Seems like there's a lot of love with Framber on the mound. You trust him enough to be able to get this done here tonight?
I'm willing to fade Griffin Canning, another guy who puts a lot of guys on base. And, he's got a 4.7 ERA and a 1.37 WHIP. And this is an Astros lineup that feels like now they're starting to come around, right? And plus, the Angels are one of the worst home teams in baseball, 10-21 straight up at home this year. So it's not like the Astros are all that much better on the road, but you get Framber, you get a guy who is probably going to go 5 or 6 innings as long as he doesn't get rocked early. And this is an Angels lineup that, all things considered, I don't really have a lot of faith in. They don't score a ton of runs, and Framber should be good enough here to get us through 5, and let's hope that the Astros bullpen can do the rest.
Yeah, I mean, back in a couple of weeks ago, they got crushed by the Angels there, but I don't see how this thing goes over 8.5 runs either. I think it's a dead under with these two teams here until the bullpen gets involved, and then Houston's going to pull away rather quickly in that one here. Friends don't let friends bet the Padres. Are you betting the Padres,
Apparently, we stopped being friends. So, look.
No.
Well, I mean, look, they've lost 5 in a row, and it was a game last night where they had a runner on second with a chance to tie the game in the 9th inning, and a bad call by the umpire ended the game. And it just felt like one of those games where San Diego was so close to breaking through. I'm willing to fade Brendan Pfaadt. I'm not a believer in him, at least not in the regular season. Maybe when we get to the postseason, I'll start to believe in him again. But again, he's got a run higher ERA on the road. And for me, it just feels like the time in front of San Diego. Now, full admission, if San Diego doesn't get it done tonight, I'll probably play on them again tomorrow to avoid being swept and losing 7 straight. So it was situationally a spot where I really felt like the losing streak was going to come to an end tonight.
Yeah, it's been a strange go. Neither team truly, including Arizona. I mean, they seem to have figured a few things out, but this is another team that is woefully underperforming here. And I'm sorry, when you have those bats in a lineup of the Padres, you got Tatis Jr. I mean, what do you got to score some runs at some point. You got a pretty damn good bullpen, and you got a former Yankee on the mound. There is no excuse at all for them not to win this game here tonight at home here, Zin. When we get back, we'll take a look here to game number 2 with the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. We'll dive into that here on Game Time Decisions.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Friday. Joe Raineri, joined by Mark Zinno, as we've got, about 7, 8 Major League Baseball games underway right now. We got about another half a dozen getting ready. Should be a quality night. Yankees-Dodgers at Yankee Stadium. Nothing there. The only game of any significance right now with runs is Milwaukee in 2 innings. They're up 5-0 over Detroit. So we'll keep you posted on how these go here. But Zen, it felt like it took, 2 years to get to the NBA Finals. We finally got there last night. Game 1 in the books. Don't spend an awful lot dwelling over what we saw last night because adjustments will be made. And quite honestly, it doesn't mean anything on a game-to-game basis. What are we going to get Game 2 is going to be the big question I have for you, given the fact that the total opened up exactly the same way that it opened up in Game 1, and we're already seeing the Dallas money hit the board again. So the spot favors Dallas. It feels like a zigzag. What do you think we're going to get here in a Game 2?
Well, look, the level of frustration I had after Game 1 for being on the wrong side of the Boston Celtics team total going over is still at a very high level for me. The numbers tell you everything that Boston should have easily scored 110 points. They shot 47.5% from the field, 38% from 3. They got 20 points of Kristaps off the bench. All 5 starters were in double figures. Everything told you that Boston's offense was clicking on all cylinders. They scored 37 points in the first quarter and then scored 44 in the entire second half. Why? Because Dallas was useless the entire game offensively. And so odds makers are telling you, look, Dallas won't be that bad offensively 2 games in a row. But here's the thing, and this is what really is the issue, why that total hasn't moved, because odds makers are telling you if Dallas levels out just a little bit, this thing will go right up in that 214 range again because Boston is going to get up to one. Boston should have been at 115, 116 the way they just didn't have to rush. They didn't have to do anything in the second half. They didn't have to break a sweat. And that really just killed the pace of the game. I mean, it was one of those things, Joe, where it was like the right read. I just got a bad result with the team total. Maybe I got a little too cute and should have just laid the 6 with the Celtics or 6.5. But the thing about Boston is they remind you how much markedly better they are than other teams when they play them. The frustration with the Celtics is they have another game in the next game where it's so much closer and the numbers just don't say, oh, my God, this was the same team that rolled the other team in Game 1. So the expectation is that Dallas will start to get better. But I don't know if I believe that because I think we keep forgetting how good Boston's defense is. This is still a top 5 defensive efficiency team in the NBA. That's not the Dallas Mavericks. And we saw Boston do a similar thing defensively to a team that is better on the offensive end than the Dallas Mavericks in the Indiana Pacers. So we keep forgetting how good Boston's defense is. Really, what you're banking on is if Boston's defense puts the same level of effort out there, I don't think Dallas can stay within this number. It's just a question of whether, Dallas normalizing to 44, 45% shooting still makes Boston cover this game, right? Like Dallas is going to have to be in the 46, 47 range, possibly 48, and they're going to have to make more than 7 threes. Because the problem is that every time Boston makes 15 threes, at least 14 or 15 or more, they're unbeatable. You're just not going to beat them because nobody shoots it as well as they do left in this postseason. Nobody did. I mean, with the exception of Oklahoma City, statistically, nobody is going to make anywhere near as much threes as Boston is. So Dallas better get out and defend the 3, and that's where Dallas has to win this game. They have to stop the Celtics on the perimeter and figure out how they're going to score because the tactic that Boston uses is great. Okay, Luka, you go do what you're going to do. Go ahead, get your 30-10, and we're going to be okay. We're just not going to let anybody else do anything. Yep. And that should be enough for Boston. Really, it should be. Because Luka, as great as he is not enough. He's got to have some complementary support, whether it's Kyrie or wherever else it may be. He's got to have some complementary support. I mean, Kyrie's not going to go 6 for 19 again, I don't think, and 0 for 5 from 3. But still, even if he levels off, is it enough to close a 20-point gap in a game that really Boston was never really, challenged in other than the first 6 minutes of the first quarter? Boston's a better team, and they reminded you of that last night. So if you're under 6 here, I'd still go with Boston. I wouldn't turn away from them because it's one of those things where Boston's going to cover or they're going to lose the game outright, right? I feel like it's just that kind of series.
Yep. It's they have a math problem now. You can't give up 42 threes to Boston and you only take 27. You can't allow Boston to have 15 extra attempts at three and you're still trying to mess around with twos. Like it's the math is not going to work. They need somebody outside of Luka to make a couple of threes to be able to open some other things up. So who will that be? I don't know. We got a month until game 2, it feels like here. So there's certainly plenty of time, for them to work on a few things. But let me ask you this. Boston wins, covers game 2. Are we pushing in on Dallas in game 3 back against the wall at home?
If Boston wins game 2, I suspect the number, depending on how big they win it, but I suspect it would still be probably Boston minus 3.5 or 4. They'll give Dallas a clear 2.5 points for home court advantage. And again, that's a spot where it's, to me, Dallas money line or Celtics outright. I think Boston is good enough to cover every number you lay out there that is under 10. They really are. Like that's to me, in my opinion, I thought game 1 should have opened up at 7.5, maybe 8. They came out at 6. I thought the number was very low. Again, probably got too cute with the team total. I just knew Boston was going to score and be able to score. I don't think Dallas can stop them. I genuinely don't.
Yeah, well, the big problem is, of course, is Boston 11-19 against the number in the playoffs after a blowout win. The game 2 is this has been their demise. The take the foot off the gas, believe the own hype. If you really want to believe this is a new one,
the public is going to buy into it.
Just saying, it's a narrative because it's real, and that's exactly what they've done again this year. So can they get over that hump? If they do, this could be over in 4. Mark Zeno, enjoy the games, man. Thanks for stopping by. GTD returns after this.
When it comes to betting on sports, injuries matter, and Sports Injury Central has you covered all year long with expert injury analysis and injury-based picks for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Our former pro sports doctors have unmatched experience to analyze every injury so you know the impact of the player, team, and their upcoming matchup. Whether it's articles, podcasts, player insights, or our patented injury scores, Sports Injury Central will help you keep up with your fantasy team and make more informed wagers. So make sure you follow Sports Injury Central and gain an edge at sixscore.com.
Your gut says Miami is going to win and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think GameTime Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to GameTime Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than GameTime Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into GameTime Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. Still no score. Yankees at home taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Going to be one hell of a weekend, not just in Major League Baseball, NBA Finals, NHL Finals, and let's not forget the Belmont Stakes happening tomorrow at Saratoga. It's the Belmont's not at Belmont. We'll get into that in a minute. Gino Bagola, the Daily Racing Form, joining us here. Gino, we appreciate you stopping in. The first thing we need to explain, because there's no doubt a viewer going, wait a minute, you said the Belmont's at Saratoga? Yes, it's at Saratoga. Yes. So let's start with that. The big difference is in this race and how to approach handicapping as opposed to if it was at Belmont.
Yeah, so because of the construction going on at Belmont over the next few years, things are going to be very, very nice over there. They're expanding. They just want to be able to have more people, more capacity for big events just like this in the future and possibly Breeders' Cups in the future. So it's not bad to have Saratoga as your pinch hitter coming off the bench to fill in for you. But because of the configuration of the racetrack up there, they won't be able to run at 1.5 miles. It would either have to be 1.25 miles, or if they wanted to go a little bit longer. They decided 1.25 miles makes the most sense. That's the distance that these horses have all just run at the Kentucky Derby. And we've seen Belmont races in the past run at different distances. So this isn't anything new. Remember, just a few years ago in COVID, everything was a little bit out of order and distances were not the same. So to me, that just made this race more competitive, more wide open, because we don't really have to eliminate some horses right away that we know they're not going to be able to get 1.5 miles. So for us gamblers, I think it opened things up and it gives us a couple more real opportunities for horses to take a swing with.
All right, so talk to me here about, it's so funny because Sierra Leone, we've been hearing since before the Derby, it's going to win the Belmont. It's going to be the Belmont. Wait until they get to the Belmont. Distance is perfect. Yeah. All that. So talk to me on how this race breaks out here. Where's the early speed? And should we be looking at Sierra Leone here as a contender?
Yeah, the race should set up pretty well for him. On paper, it looks like there's probably 3 or 4 horses who should all be pushing the pace. We became familiar with Seize the Gray, the Preakness winner. He was setting the pace in the Preakness. I think he'll be right there. You see, they have Mystic Dan up close as we look at the Timeform US pace projections. He shouldn't be too far out of it. I actually think the Wine Steward, the 4, I think he's going to be a little more forwardly placed in here. So this is what it should look like at the beginning. What we saw before was at the end. So it shows you it should be pretty fast with the 1, the 6, and the 10 all kind of battling it out, and then behind them another group of horses. So it should set up pretty well for horses coming from off the pace like Sierra Leone. He'll have no excuses. They changed equipment. They made a rider change. He's kind of been his own worst enemy. Joe, he's a horse who's not quite very efficient late, kind of lugs in, he sort of bumps a little bit. We saw him doing that in the Derby against his rival. So if they were able to really kind of figure him out in the last 5 weeks or so, and he could just mature a little bit, he's going to be tough to hold off if he can stay straight. So I have him and Mystic Dan as the horses to beat, but we want to know a little bit more than that, right? I'm not here to tell you about the horses to beat. I'm here to tell you, Joe, about the horses to bet. And for me, I have 2 of them that I think could offer really nice value for however people want to play. If you're someone who plays horses to win, maybe you're someone who plays pick 4s and pick 5s, or maybe you play like exactas and tries. These horses could help spice any of that up. I have 2 of them that should both be nice value. The number 2, Resilience, who's 10-1 on the morning line. Remember him in the Kentucky Derby. He made that huge wide move all the way up at the top of the lane. A lot of people thought he was looking like a winner. He just had to move so wide so quickly that he kind of flattened out a little bit. But he's training very well, and the connections are excited about him. And instead of post 18, he's going to have post 2. He should be able to save a lot more ground. I'll give you one more that I think should offer really nice value. The number 8, Honor Marie. This poor horse had a brutal trip in the Kentucky Derby. He was dead last early. Coming out of the gate, he was pinballed back and forth. And he made a huge move from 20th all the way up to 8th. And then again, once you make a move like that quickly, you sort of flatten out. In a race like this where there's not 20 horses, he's going to have a much better opportunity. So 2 price horses for you, 2 horses to beat, Sierra Leone and Mystic Dan. The total wild card on the outside is Mindframe. Remember, shop.drf.com. That's where you got to go, Joe. Tonight, when you're handicapping, you're sitting back with your beer, you're watching Dodgers Yankees, you're getting all ready to rock and roll, you're putting your bets together for tomorrow. We've got everything you need at shop.drf.com to help you make all the money come Belmont time. And hey, you call me back sometime soon and we'll talk more Dodgers Yankees.
I love it, Gino. Let's just make sure Todd Pletcher doesn't get 5 more entries into this race that we didn't know about. Appreciate it, Gino. As always, man, enjoy the races. It should be absolutely epic, and Game Time Decisions will be back after this.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Coming up top of the hour, a little in-game live prime time here, covering a big slate of Major League Baseball action right now. Yankees, Dodgers in the Bronx, no score there. And the man that you will see at the top here, Matty Peralt, stepping in. And Matt, it's funny, we were just talking before we came on air because the reports are flowing in that it appears there is a number associated with how much the Lakers are going to throw at Hurley to leave UConn. And this is an astronomical number, to the point, Matt, where it's laughable. And is that the kind of money where we're going to make you an offer you can't refuse? Is that what this offer is, you think?
Yeah, I mean, good to see you, Joe. I think if you look at the highest paid coach in the NBA, it's Greg Popovich. He's making $16 million a year. So if it's $100 million, is it $20 million? I mean, how many years is this going to actually be for is the question. Because if it's, $10 million a year for 10 years, I'm not sure he's jumping up and down. But if it's $20 million a year for 5 years, maybe he does take the bag because, as we talked about during the break, you can always go back. I mean, I'm a graduate of UMass Amherst. I watched John Calipari go to the Nets and went back to Kentucky and dominated. We've seen Rick Pitino go to the pros and stink and then go back to college and dominate. The college game, even though it's changing dramatically with the NIL rules and players and how you recruit and get players to show up to play for you, is changing. This is still a very lucrative NBA offer that he could go back to college if things fail.
Oh, they absolutely good. The question is, that's a learning curve for him. And here's a guy that actually wants to coach. There's not much of that going on. So are the Lakers, you think, looking, this is for the generation after LeBron? Is that what they're selling him on, you think, Matt?
Yeah, look, the NBA has now become a developmental league. I think if you look at the way the Boston Celtics got to the NBA Finals, it was a lot of trial and tribulation with both Jalen and Jason. They took them both third in the draft and waited. And that was in Boston. There were a lot of talks about trading both those guys, trying to get the established veteran. And Boston really was hesitant. Danny Ainge didn't want to do it. Brad Stevens then gave Jaylen Brown a max contract. Last offseason, that was a gigantic question. Does Jaylen Brown has he earned a max deal? Now you would say, oh my gosh, has he ever earned it with the way he played in game one for the Celtics? So I think teams in the Lakers, frankly, are looking at this going, we're going to be bad for a while. Like, we need to stockpile draft picks. We need to figure out what life will look like after LeBron James is gone. And how do we go from the end of LeBron into the beginning of whatever else comes next? And they need a coach who actually can develop talent. And clearly we know that Hurley is capable of doing that. Plus he's scouted and or recruited so many players in this draft and the next draft that he have a pretty good idea as to who he'd want to be on the roster for the Lakers.
It's a fascinating, it really is. It's going to be a fascinating time to see what he does, and maybe the Lakers starting a trend here, because you're going to have to pay me that kind of money to have to sit there and bite my tongue with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in a locker room and not actually coach, which is exactly what he is at heart here. What did you think of the job Mazzulla did coaching, getting his team ready for last night there? For a guy that took some flack, I thought he had his guys ready to go here.
I thought that the decision to bring Porzingis off the bench was brilliant. I think it was perfect to have him come into a game like that where he wasn't a starting. He normally was the starter, but to have Al Horford start and then bring in KP, the way that he dominated the time of, I mean, he was plus 13 last night. He didn't play a ton, but when he did play, he was highly effective and really spurred that first quarter in which Boston led by 17 points after the first quarter, and that was pretty much the game after that. I think Mazzulla learned a lot last year. I think he's been pretty calm and not overly reactionary. And I thought from a player perspective, Boston looked like the team that had been in the finals before. The first quarter for Dallas, a lot of their young guys looked a little bit over their skis. Lively looked like he was a little bit behind the moment. I thought Luka looked a little bit hesitant at times. And then Boston attacked Luka on the defensive end, and they got him tired. And yeah, he scored 30 and 10, but he had one assist, and he was a liability on the defensive end for the Mavs last night. I thought that was all coaching and a really good matchup job by Mazzulla.
I could not agree more here. We've got a couple of games coming up late night on the slate. Astros and Angels. Canning against Framber Valdez. You leaning one way or the other in these late games?
Do we have to watch that game? I mean, my gosh, what happened to the Astros? I mean, the pitching matchup is okay, but Framber hasn't been a typical Framber Valdez. The Astros lost, two of their best pitchers this week to season-ending surgery. Their offense is non-existent this season, and the Angels are just a train wreck. I mean, they're just. This is the weirdest. The AL West was supposed to be really good. I mean, they had the AL representative last year, and you couldn't watching the Rangers. You could have fooled me as to how they do it. And I know they've got their two big arms coming back in the second half, and that's when they're spurred to go on a run, and maybe they make some noise at the trade deadline. But my goodness gracious, this is a bad division, let alone bad teams individually. This whole division is tough to watch.
So coming up top of the, I got to ask you, though, because nobody seems to understand. Why are the Red Sox a dog tonight? I'm curious. Could you any idea, Matt?
Yeah, I do, because I'm on the first five. I'm on White Sox first five. I may need my head checked betting on a team that's lost 14 consecutive games, and Boston just scored 14 runs against them. But Crochet's legit. I mean, this kid can really pitch. I don't know how much longer he'll be on the White Sox because I think they're going to fire sale everybody. I think Fetty, Crochet, and Robert are all on different teams after the trade deadline. But I think Boston has had a tough time scoring runs this year against elite pitching. And I think the White Sox, the kid that the Red Sox are throwing, is a gas can. He's an opener. He gets lit up. This is the worst pitcher that Boston throws. I think the White Sox, until that bullpen comes in, and that's why it's first five. I want nothing to do with the White Sox bullpen. You could in-game this. I bet the run line. I laid the half a run first 5 for the White Sox and took plus money on it because 3-2 lead and we win there. And then that bullpen comes in and all bets are off. They could lose their 15th consecutive game tonight. No, I 100% think the Red Sox are live to win the game. So I took the bullpens out of it and just went first 5.
Love that. Him and Fettig, the only 2 guys worth betting in the first 5. That's it. Don't go anywhere and then bet against them later in the game there. Chris Bassett on the road, never a trustable thing here. Toronto taking on the Oakland A's. What are you thinking?
Probably, I don't know. I probably would go with the A's on this, but I have such a hard time with the A's. Like, I hate this team. I hate this team that seems moving here. I hate that the A's are moving here. I can't bet on the A's because I hate them. They're moving here. I don't want them to move here. Nobody in Vegas wants the A's. The ballpark is going to be a very weird thing to watch get built. They want to take 10% of their games and play them elsewhere. Like, they're coming to a new place and they're like, yeah, but we don't want to be there for the full 81 games. We're going to go take 10 games and go play somewhere else. Wait, what? Where are you going? Why? So the A's to me, like I hate bet the A's all the time. So I'd take the Blue Jays just because I hate the A's.
It's very strange situation altogether there. But so are the Padres, who can't win a game anymore. Apparently, what is it, 4 in a row now? Do we trust them tonight against Arizona, who finally figured some things out?
No, I mean, this is a team. When are the Padres going to play like the Padres? Like, remember we thought they were going to be like a real contender to the Dodgers? We're like, yeah, man, they're stockpiling. They're going for it. They're spending. Can't trust them. I can never trust them. But the Diamondbacks, I mean, equally, this is a team that made a huge run last year, and they're equally a pain in the neck. Like, you can't trust them either. So this is a tough game to bet for me, simply because whenever I think I've got a line on the Padres, they let me down. I think I'm 0-3 this year betting on the Padres in baseball. So I lean Diamondbacks.
Did you take the Chris Sale under? Because he's on the mound now, Matty. Last time last time he pitched, we thought it was it was not good.
Careful.
That was the
Be
Chris Sale of the Red Sox.
Yeah, be real careful. June 1st comes, Chris Sale turns into a pumpkin. Real careful with Chris Sale. He's April and May. That dude's amazing. June on. Careful.
Woo, we learned that lesson in the hard way last time out. Matty, enjoy, my man. I'll see you again tomorrow. Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game Time Decisions on this Friday here on the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Exciting stuff going on this weekend. A little something for everyone. Gotta love the way you start the month of June off here. We have a huge PGA tournament going on, a classic, the Memorial, in which Scottie Scheffler proving once again that Tiger who? He is the greatest thing to hit the PGA Tour since one Mr. Tiger Woods here, and he is in front at the Memorial once again, and a bit of a tune-up because next week we've got the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, so golf certainly going to be front and center here all weekend long, all next week here. It's a good time of year. Now, let's not forget also, we've got the NBA Finals. That'll be on Sunday, Game 2. Will Dallas or won't Dallas be able to get back into this? And then, of course, the puck is dropping tomorrow in South Florida as the Panthers getting ready to take on the Edmonton Oilers. There is one guy that knows all about the Panthers and Edmonton and hockey and the Mariners. And I'm trying to read what kind of sweatshirt he has, but I can't quite get that. But there is a lot of teams. You want somebody who knows a little about a lot. Dave Sherapan in the house here, mostly because it all matches the headgear. I love that Mariners hat, right? Is that Mariners or Mavericks? Which one is that?
No, this is old school Mavericks because
Mavs.
Yeah, old school Mavs and Celtics old school stuff. Brought out the green jacket because I got to go on with Peralt later. He's from Boston, and he's been talking about these Celtics all season. And you saw what happened, and I said, all right, I can wear the full ensemble of Celtics stuff tonight as we bloviate about Boston sports later. But I said,
yes,
what's going to take for the Mavericks to win on Sunday in Game 2? I don't know if it's going to take Mark Aguirre, Dirk Nowitzki. It's going to take somebody. I don't know if Luka's enough. I didn't find really Kyrie got to step up. Everybody's got to step up. But I couldn't give him the satisfaction we're going to be together for the next 2 hours. I just couldn't wear all green and all Celtic stuff. I acquiesced with the jersey, with the T-shirt underneath the green jacket, got dressed up for you. Big Belmont weekend. Last time I wore this jacket, I hit the try in the Kentucky Derby, and I was hoping you had a horseplay for me, Joe. Please, anything.
Yeah.
Anything?
Yes.
You got a horseplay?
Absolutely, we did. I do. By the way, let me just say, first of all, that has got to be the most Swiss flag outfit I have seen in a long time. You are literally not looking to get involved on a side or get on the other side. Now, the way you mixed and matched not only the Celtics, but throwing in the old school Dallas Mavs hat, very Switzerland of you there. I love it. And oh, by the way, I do think there is one thing Dallas can do. I think Jason Kidd could suit up on Sunday.
Oh,
what do you think? What do you think? Yes.
I mean, you
yes.
think he could give him 8 minutes?
Chance.
2 minutes a quarter?
I think
he'll
get
in
him
a little rotation.
8 seconds. Yes, yeah, that's got calf written all over it. He doesn't want anything to do with that at all. Your Pirates are up 2-0 right now over the Twins, which is good. I won't say anything about that. But the Yankees and the Dodgers, this is a fun sight here. You don't often get to see it, especially when they both are relevant. But I'm not seeing any score right now. So did you think we were going to get runs here tonight? I didn't.
Is Soto in the lineup? I haven't checked.
No. Nope.
Is that kid
Day
making
to
up
day,
to
though.
play
He's not
the
on
game?
the IL. No, because they didn't put him on the IL.
Okay, so they didn't bring that kid up to play in the lineup, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. They don't
So-
have a roster spot for him.
In our 4-hour tour that we did last night, we were paying attention to this. We were looking ahead. And I don't know if you remember, because I swear we talked to a whole roster of new people. We had a great show, great guests. It was outstanding. I got a very positive report today about the results of number of people that watched it. Thank you to everybody who did. We knew the number was, we were surprised that the Yankees were dogs. It was minus 120, Yamamoto. That thing closed 142 in places.
Yeah.
Like the Dodgers were just going to show up today and win, 6-2? Like it's nothing. I've been talking about it all day to everyone that I know. Now that I know that Soto's not in, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But give me the Yankees plus money. That's what I thought. Now, Yankees and under would be the correlation, and so far so good to the total. That's also the reason why this is kind of neutral side as far as the NBA Finals. Joe, that game last night went under every single number. While we were on, there wasn't a number that game ended up over. We saw it as low as 196.5. I like the under again on Sunday. That's where I'm at with the total. Mix and match, bad, good, indifferent. Under Sunday.
I don't. I was low. We were a little miffed last night when it opened up at the same number game one did at 214.5, because I don't understand what's going to change necessarily, unless you think Dallas is going to win the game, not only cover but win it outright. I think that's the only reason you would look at the over. It feels like every time Boston had a chance in that game last night, Dave, they slowed it down when the game was out of control. They had no interest in continuing. They paced it. They made it so Dallas couldn't come back. And I don't see why they would do anything different in game two. It would only be an under for us, right, in this one?
The only way I think what Dallas would change would have Boston miss more threes in the first quarter and maybe not have Porzingis play as many minutes as he did.
Right.
Porzingis was pretty good. That was the story. We talked about it. He's good. When he's good, Boston is real good. I was hoping that we get a long series. Tomorrow's a must-win for Dallas to win the series. Tomorrow isn't necessarily a must-win to prevent them from getting swept, but I like, the first thought is you got to take them plus the points, and any 7.5 are gone. I see some 7s now. There's a couple 6.5s. I'll be looking forward to Sunday.
Spot screams Dallas, but that doesn't mean they're going to win. We'll have more on that Game Time Decisions here on the Grid.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in now. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside the man taking over at the top of the hour here for a little in-game live prime time. And there's plenty of prime time Major League Baseball on here tonight. So a lot going on that card. But before you get out of here, Dave, I may or may not be seen at Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals in South Florida here. But that is tomorrow. And I need to know how you're leaning, because I got a lot of Canadian friends that keep telling me, oh boy, wait till Edmonton I'm not worried. What are you thinking here tomorrow?
I think so. Two schools of thought after this long layoff. I mean, these guys have not played for a while. You get sloppy hockey. You can't complete 3 passes. The goalies dominate. The game goes under, in which case it's reflective of the line, and it maybe goes to overtime. Now, you did good with the overtime bets. We talked about it a lot. It worked out very well.
Yep.
Tomorrow, I think it goes a little bit differently. I think the home ice, the last change, is going to limit what Edmonton Top Guns can do. Florida's so deep, they're going to set the matchup. So that team is so dialed in. Everybody's working together, and Bobrovsky's playing great. I like Florida in Game 1. I think it goes under, and I am looking at the Edmonton team total under. Now, the way Edmonton won the last few games against Dallas was to play under games. I don't think Edmonton, unless Skinner stands on his head, makes, 35-plus saves, and they win a game 2-1 or maximum 3-2, that they can win that under game in Florida. The home ice and the last change is going to be vital to this whole series. These teams are very close, both playing their best hockey right now with all of their guys good to go. I don't think there's any undisclosed injuries. Maybe a power play or two, a bad puck bounce, something that's going to decide. The games are going to be close. Almost every game's going under. That's the way I look at it right now.
Yep. I don't hate that. First period under 2, 1.5. Might not be a bad look. A little tight with a 6-7 day layoff there, but it should be a very entertaining finals there. It was 5 games last year. Florida lost. I think we got a game or 2 more than that when this is all said and done. All right, Sherapan, get out of here. You got another show to do, as always, my man. Appreciate you swinging by. Again, next time, just wrap yourself in a Swiss flag. Much easier than having to coordinate 2 separate teams, so you don't make anybody mad, though. But well done.
I don't want to make anybody mad, but I got it here, Joe. I got it here.
Oh, look, you see what I mean? There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Superman ain't got nothing on you. You got a phone booth in that room, too? Get out of here, Dave Sherapan. Appreciate it, as always, my man. All right, we got much more coming up here tonight as the dynamic duo there, both Dave Sherapan and Matty Pearl, taking over here in just a couple of minutes. And they will keep you abreast of what's happening here with the Yankees and the Dodgers. We've got no score. Top of the 4th inning right now. Yamamoto pitching well, and so is the Yankees rookie. I mean, this is all of a sudden a pitching match I don't think anybody really thought we were going to get right now. We're also seeing quite the pitching battle at the Great American Ballpark with the Cincinnati Reds, who have been absolutely crushing it. Not crushing it right now against Steele. Top of the 4th inning, Cubs nothing, Reds nothing. Lodolo pitching for the Reds. That should be a good game. Orioles, Rays, a game in which we just could not understand what was going on with the number, where Baltimore in some spots was actually an underdog here on the road against Tampa. Well, as it turns out right now, it's 2-2. So Tampa is holding their own. Somebody get the license plate of the truck that just ran over the Detroit Tigers. Actually, it's the Milwaukee Brewers truck right now. 8-0 in that game, top of the fifth. The only blowout on the board right now. The Braves are losing to the Nats 2-0 in the bottom of the fifth with Chris Sale on the mound. So as you can see, there is plenty going on in Major League Baseball tonight. Much more to come. Matty Peralta there and Dave Sherapan will be taking over here in just a minute. What a day tomorrow is going to be. The Belmont Stakes, the Memorial, plenty of Major League Baseball, the NHL Stanley Cup Game 1. There is no reason for you to hang out anywhere other than right here. Game Time Decisions will be back tomorrow. In the meantime, cash those tickets. We'll talk to you again soon.